I hope you belch so that it can go in your
I'm
bloopers.
telling
That's
you.
really good.
I'm sorry. It's a burpy day. I mean, I don't know what it is. Wrong day to be burpy. Da-da-da-da. You ready?
I'm ready.
Nancy Drew or Babysitter's Club?
Oh my, that's literally the hardest question anybody's ever asked me because 100% even, but I'm gonna go with Babysitter's Club.
I love it. Typed or handwritten?
Both, 50-50. All dialogue is handwritten, everything else is typed.
Nice. 20s or 30s?
30s, way better.
Morning or night?
Morning. I
Coffee.
wish night, but morning.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Well, both, but coffee.
Alyson or Leah?
Leah.
Good choice. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we met. Alyson DM'd me because she had just written a book, Braced, which I read and fell in love with. And I went to her book signing and I was so excited to see that somebody was bringing awareness to a cause that has affected me in my life.
The reason I DM'd you in the first place was because I had heard you talking so eloquently on Refinery 29 about your own experience and some of your own struggles in facing your scoliosis journey.
Thank you. And I think what you're really known for, and what I've been able to tell now from being to 2 of your readings and your major book launches, is that you connect to your readers so well and so seamlessly. And speaking of connecting to your readers, you have just launched Focused, which is another very exciting book bringing awareness to another issue. Do you want to share a little bit more about Focused?
I would love to. So Focused is published by Scholastic, and it is about a 12-year-old girl named Clea who is obsessed with chess. She plays on her chess team and she's pretty good at it. But unfortunately, she's not doing very well in school. Mm-hmm. And in order to stay on her chess team at school, she needs to keep her grades up. And she's really unable to do that because she has undiagnosed ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I have ADHD. I didn't find out about it until I was 21. And so this book is really about coming to sort of accept yourself and all of your differences. And it's really a conversation starter about what does it mean to be smart and how we're all smart in our own unique, different ways. And ADHD doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. It has to do with how you process information. And it's really Clea's journey to accepting who she is. And in some ways, it's sort of a nice pair to Braced, which is a story really about what it means to accept when something on the outside isn't the same as everybody else. And we really connected over that.
My problems that I face and my insecurities that I face probably throughout my middle school, high school years, still my memory resonate as bigger than my insecurities I face in my adult life.
Well, I think what's interesting is that I think those problems sort of go with you. You asked me during a different conversation about how do I channel my sort of adolescent self and my middle school feelings. And I think some of it is I want to go back there and I want to grapple with those feelings and how I felt and why I felt the things I felt. But some of it is also that those feelings that I had sort of followed me into adulthood and there are things I still grapple with.
Do you think that the challenges you faced through scoliosis helped you handle that diagnosis of ADHD, or was it just completely different?
I think in some ways handling scoliosis definitely helped me manage the process of being diagnosed, evaluated, and diagnosed with ADHD, because when you are diagnosed with scoliosis, as you know, at a really young age, you have this huge undertaking, this huge responsibility, like anybody who's diagnosed with anything at a young age, and you're handling a medical condition. And that's a big responsibility for a kid. It's something that not every kid has to handle. It also is something that's on the outside. And so you couldn't see my scoliosis, but you could see my back brace. And it was a thing that made me different. It made me feel like I was standing out a lot. At the time, that was a huge challenge. It became this huge strength for me because I'm really comfortable standing out. I'm comfortable speaking up for myself. I'm comfortable being my own advocate, because there were times as a scoliosis patient I didn't do that. And I saw how that was detrimental to me.
By writing about these diagnoses, you're also giving tools to help other young people that are learning about themselves as well.
Definitely. I mean, that's one of the things we always talk about with scoliosis. Like having information is a really powerful tool.
Information is everything. You said something really profound at your last book reading that really resonated with me about ADHD. How some of the greatest thinkers in the world have learning differences. And it means that their brain just works in a different way, but is equally capable, if not more capable, than someone else's. So I was wondering if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on that.
Definitely.
Because you articulated it really well, and I can't remember what you said, but it immediately made me think of the people that I know and care about that have some of those similar struggles.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad to hear that because, from my perspective, it took me a long time to see it in a positive light. And I think part of the thing that I realized about myself is I wouldn't be an author if I didn't have ADHD, because for me, hyperfocus is the thing. It's a symptom of ADHD. It means that when I'm really interested in something, I'm really excited about something, it's all I want to think about and talk about. So I have the ability and the interest in diving into a world and creating characters and building out a whole story and sort of living there and making them as authentic as I possibly can. And that's because of my ADHD that I'm able to do it. When I see a problem, often because of the way my brain sees things, I see a different solution than most people see.
Right.
I can just see things from a different angle. I have a different perspective.
Right.
And it's really the people who can think differently, who have different experiences, who have faced struggles and faced challenges, that can see things from a different perspective. Those are the people that really can change the world and help others and make a real difference.
I agree. I think it all comes down to perspective. I think it's all about taking something that started out as a negative thing in your life and switching your perspective and using it to your advantage. And that's what you've done so well by taking two of the things that initially could have been negative for you, and you've manifested them into work, into pieces of literature. That's incredible.
Thank you. I think for me, creating characters who are facing the things that I faced that felt so negative and so bad and so hard, I can give sort of the gift of these people and their stories to the next generation of readers who are looking to find themselves, looking to find their own experiences from somebody who's been there.
You recently proofread my essay for Thrive Global, which meant so much to me. And when we met for brunch, we were talking about how there's actually quite a bit of parallels between our two industries.
Definitely.
And we've both learned that we've had to really take control of our careers in order to succeed. You said something that really fascinated me at your last book reading, where you said that when you originally wrote your story, you were told that you didn't have a plot. And that's something that just never occurred to me as someone who likes to write. How did you handle that feedback? And did you have to just totally rework your format?
So I had written 2 manuscripts before I wrote Braced, so 2 full manuscripts. I think I was avoiding writing Braced because I didn't want scoliosis and all the feelings I had and all that experience to define me as an author. And I was running away from facing the real story that I needed to tell first.
You were afraid of Braced being the first piece of work. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. So how did this all manifest?
So eventually I got to the 2 books that I wrote. They weren't the story that I needed to tell, and they weren't strong enough to move on to the next thing.
Okay.
And I think I knew deep down inside that I had to face this.
Well, I think that dealing with scoliosis really affected you.
Absolutely. I mean, it defined me.
It's so important to emphasize that, how much it really can affect somebody, especially during those adolescent, impressionable years.
For me, it was a combination of, wearing a back brace for 2.5 years and also...
And sorry to interrupt, but how many hours a day and for how long did you have to wear a back brace? Just so
That's a great
people
question.
can understand.
So I wore a back brace 23 hours a day for 2.5 years, 7 days a week. So, yeah, it was sort of took over my life. And in addition to the fact that I was struggling in school, I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. All of the things that made me feel good about myself, like dancing and skiing and being on a team, those things slowly, one by one, sort of got not taken away from me, but became more difficult. My self-esteem really started to crumble. And I had a lot of pain I was holding inside, and I felt like I couldn't express that. So wearing a back brace was a huge challenge in itself, but on top of that, my mom also has scoliosis, and she had a very old version of the spinal fusion, where she had her whole spine fused together. She was in a body cast on bed rest for 6 months, and then she wore a metal back brace for 2.5 years. Oof. And then she had her Harrington rods removed in a big second procedure. Though this would never happen now. This is not, it's no longer the sort of regular spinal fusion.
The treatment has evolved quite
yes,
a bit.
Exactly. But for her, this was, and I think for my whole family, it was such a big trauma. I mean, it was so defining for her that all of a sudden to have her oldest daughter diagnosed with scoliosis and having to face it in some ways all over again, put her in a position where she wasn't able to be there for me in the way that I needed. Now, she was there for me, but not in the ways that I needed. And in some ways, I think that this experience helped me learn to advocate for myself. It helped me recognize the things that I needed.
But do you think that her experience helped instill in you that you had to wear your brace?
Definitely. I think I was very affected.
That's the one positive part of your mother having experienced it, for sure.
I think she was afraid I was going to need to have surgery, and I was afraid, and I wanted to do everything possible. Of course, you can wear your brace and still need to have surgery. And you can do everything you possibly can and you can still get there. But I think I definitely was motivated to try to take care of myself.
I can't imagine anything more cathartic for someone who also likes to write than to write those experiences through a fictional character. I can completely understand why that would be your first piece of work, because those are your developmental years. That's when you're finding yourself. That's when you're finding out who you are as a woman, and it affects you a lot.
It was the thing I was running from because I didn't want it to define me. I wanted to feel like I'd overcome it. Right. And in some ways I had.
Of course, yeah.
But those feelings were still there, and I think admitting that they were there and sort of taking ownership over them gave me the chance to then start to tell other stories. And that I was sort of blocked by it because it was such a big part of my identity. And I think once I decided, okay, this actually is who I am, what I went through is real. And I think actually what's interesting is my mom's experience was so much worse than mine. I mean, it was truly horrific. Even if I had had surgery, there was no way that it was going to like sort of live up to the horrors that she experienced. But I think it actually is a really good lesson in one person's pain can be really big and yours cannot be as big, but it can still exist. And so we can create space for everybody's feelings, basically.
Everyone's pain can coexist.
Totally.
Absolutely.
I think acknowledging, yes, my mom definitely had it way worse. And I actually feel so horrible.
Of course.
And I hate that it's sort of my experience ripped open her wound and forced her to face it again. That's like a hard thing to sort of hold on as a daughter. And now I have my own daughter, thinking about how she will be monitored for scoliosis and how that's going to impact me.
That's something that anybody that's been affected by scoliosis has to think about going forward. Like, you have a 1 in 5 chance of your child also having the condition in a severe way.
Absolutely.
So we're all going to be obsessing over our children's spines. Like,
no, it's definitely how will I handle this in a way that will let her have space to have her own feelings.
Well, I realize it may have been a challenge for you, but selfishly, coming from the scoliosis community, we needed you. We needed someone like you to put out this book, because the last book about scoliosis was Judy Bloom, Dini?
Yep.
And I actually read that when I was younger, before I even knew I had scoliosis.
Oh, really?
And I felt so bad for this girl that had to wear a back brace every day. And then, funny enough, I got diagnosed with scoliosis, and I was not recommended a brace. But my scoliosis did become so severe that I had to have the spinal fusion surgery. Neither treatment options are fun, but it's definitely important that we open up this conversation and we talk about it, because we all need to feel like our experiences are real and they matter, and you're not alone in that.
That's true of anybody going through anything.
Through anything. I think it's great that we are opening up the conversation about lots of different issues. What was your biggest challenge writing either of your books?
I think that ultimately, my biggest challenge was sort of as a writer, I had to learn to believe in myself and believe in the choices that my characters were making. Before I started writing, I think I spent a lot of time worrying about what other people thought of me, having their opinions direct the way that I lived my life.
Well, I think also living with scoliosis and ADHD, the combination of two, is going to make you obsess about every little part of yourself.
Absolutely.
I can easily see why you would overthink what other people's misconceptions are of you.
And take their opinions to heart and have it sort of dictate how you live your life that's not a great way to go through life.
No.
You need to find your own voice and your own path. And I think writing actually gave me that. And so it was hard to start doing it because I didn't know how to do it for myself, and so I couldn't give that to my characters.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you want to have a character who can find their own voice.
So I wanted to ask you, when you're speaking of characters, how autobiographical is your writing?
Everything that happens within my books is fiction. So none of the plot is real. I found that my life isn't really that interesting. I mean, truly, it's just what happens in real life isn't so interesting in fiction. But all of the feelings, all of the relationships are things I've experienced. They're things that I wanted to grapple with and think about and talk about and sort of relive.
So we have a mutual friend in common, Leah Stoltz. It's actually kind of fascinating how we all came together. Leah and I were both at your first ever book reading, which was 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
When Braced launched. And we didn't even know that we were going to eventually become friends. And you guys were already friends.
We had met like a couple months earlier because Leah had read Braced.
So I started collaborating with Curvy Girl Scoliosis and eventually created the Enegal jewelry collection. And all of the proceeds from this collection benefit Leah's foundation, Curvy Girl Scoliosis. You're wearing the Leah bracelet. And I'm wearing the Alyson necklace. So Alyson, I wanted to ask you, since the first piece of the Enegal collection was named after you, the Alyson necklace.
I love it.
What does Enegal mean to you?
So Enegal technically means uneven. When you have scoliosis or you have something else about you that makes you different, it is also makes the thing that makes you unique. It's the thing that makes you special. And I really do believe this, that beauty is always in the things that are sort of imperfect about us, the things that make us a little bit different than everybody else. And for me, the experience of having scoliosis, the physicality of having scoliosis is the thing that I'm sort of most proud of about myself. And the thing that I like most about myself, it's the thing that makes me brave and strong and capable and more courageous than I would be without it. So that's what it means to me.
I love that. I think sometimes the things that make you different make you the best.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was so much fun. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Focused or Braced for June Scoliosis Awareness Month on AlysonGerber.com. See you guys later. Thank you.